Hello, welcome to the Analyst Inside Cricket with me, Simon Hughes.
And me, Simon Mann.
I'm sorry about the wind interruptions you might get tonight. I'm standing on the balcony overlooking Headingley, and it is very gusty tonight, which I'm sure actually might have just affected the bowlers a bit. But anyway, England got through unscathed at the end of the day, didn't they, Simon? So it's made the odds for the final day, Betfair's odds for the final day, intriguing. England not very much favourites. I suppose it was in the balance after 3 days. After 4 days, with India piling up 364 all out in the end, it's made India favourites now. How did you see it?
Well, the odds are India 45%, the draw is 29%, and England 27%. And look, India got the runs in the bank, haven't they? It was another brilliant day's Test cricket, and England did get through that tricky final session, those 6 overs unscathed towards the close. And also, they didn't really look like getting out. There was no real threat from three bowlers that India used. But look, history tells us final day, you've got those runs on the board. It's not going to be easy. It shouldn't be easy for England. Well, it's Test match cricket. Of course, it's not going to be easy. But England have got a chance tomorrow. But I would rather be in India's camp. And there is also the weather factor as well tomorrow. That's just a suggestion that there is going to be some light rain around, possibly some showers during the day, which of course will make it harder for England because they really want a full day's play as much as possible, and also obviously hard for India to take those 10 wickets. But it does mean, I suppose, if they're on and off a bit, they can just rest up, perhaps give Bumrah a few more overs. But so there are lots of things to throw into the final day melting pot. The game really deserves a 20-run win or a 10-run win or a 1 wicket win or a 2 wicket win, doesn't it? Something like that. It deserves an absolutely nail-biting finish because it's been a magnificent fluctuating Test match so far.
Mm. And actually, the victory target, which is 371, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is similar, of course, to the great 2019 run chase when England got 362 for 9 with Stokes and Jack Leach in that incredible last wicket partnership. So a similar sort of run chase. It's a similar sort of pitch, actually. And it's fascinating, isn't it, to see the way that Headingley pitches seem to, if not get better, at least not get worse over time. One of the reasons why England decided to bat second or to field first was the data saying that actually on the final day of a Headingley test over the last 10 years, a batter's averaged about 40 compared to the first day, they've averaged 26. So it does show that the pitch gets better. And I thought, or at least stays the same. And I thought I'd ask the groundsman if he could explain that today. So I spent quite a long time standing next to or sitting next to standing next to Richie Robinson, the Headingley groundsman, only for the last 3 years, interestingly. So he's taken over from other stalwarts of the groundsmanship here at Headingley. He's only been doing it a short time. He's a seasoned club cricketer who played for Keighley for a long time. Apparently, he was a fearsome left-hand opening bat, and so he enjoys the art of preparing a perfect pitch. And I think, as I wrote actually in the Sunday Times yesterday, I think this pitch is just about perfect for cricket because it gives everybody a chance. It means that if you bowl offline, you get hits, but if you bowl exactly the right place, you can get something out of it. There's a little bit of bounce for the faster bowlers. There's a little bit of bounce and turn for the spinners. So it is a wonderful surface. And he was just explaining that he's played around with it over the last couple of years to try and get the perfect kind of layout. And it involves Onga loam for those interested in the sort of techniques of soil construction, and then some specific ryegrass which comes from the local area. And that really, he says, holds the pitch together really well. Apparently, it creates a great root growth, and therefore the pitch holds together much better than it has in past years, which means, basically it stays flat for 4.5 days. And it played beautifully today, didn't it? I mean, apart from the odd ball which lifted off a length from probably Bryden Cast more than anybody else, it played beautifully, and it delivered 2 outstanding 100s.
Yeah, India have scored 500s in this Test match and 6 ducks, and I think 11 single-figure scores. But I mean, when the batters have got in, they've profited, especially those top order plays. We were saying last night, weren't we, that the key to the fourth day really was going to be how quickly or otherwise England could get rid of Gill, Rahul, and Pant. Well, they got rid of Gill pretty early on, Cast finding a way through via the inside edge. But we also said, well, I think I said, didn't I? I went to the
Yeah.
commentator's
I
curse
know
that
you're gonna. I knew you were gonna brag about this.
that KL Rahul absolutely nailed on for 100. I've never seen a player more nailed on for 100, and he duly delivered, although he was dropped quite badly by Harry Brook in the gully. I did go very quickly. I think that's one of the features of this test match for the catches. The ball it's just flown really quickly. I don't know. Whether they're standing too close, whether they could actually just take another step backwards. But anyway, and Pant played another one of those remarkable Pant innings. He had some Brookian luck, really, didn't he? I mean, to start with, it was horrendous. I mean, he had a huge hack at his second ball, and edge went over the slips. He had a massive slog at one on a 11. He was very lucky to get away with that. Top edge, skied up, and the wind probably just took it away from the fielders. He had a huge slog at Josh Tongue's first ball and missed it. And then he kind of just played normally for a bit, and every now and again he would take it on another fine 100. I thought the game changed when he got out, actually, and we can talk later about India's tactics in the last session. But I thought England actually bowled pretty well today. I thought they bowled really well in the morning, and it was one of those days. India lost one wicket before lunch for 63, but they could easily have lost 2 or 3 wickets in that morning session. England bowled so well, they challenged them. I just thought it was high grade Test match cricket in that first session, even though there was only 1 wicket and 63 runs.
These predictions that we're making are getting me annoyed, actually, because you're winning them at the moment. And I thought, because I said last night, didn't I? I said, oh no, I said Pant, which was I think it was 15-4 or something, that Pant was going to be the leading run scorer in India's second innings, and I could see it happening when he was starting to progress with his innings. And I said yesterday, oh, you said Rahul was nailed on for 100. I said, no, he'll play a crap shot and get out in the 60s. He did play a crap shot at 58. He should have been caught by Harry Brook and was dropped at backward point. And actually, there have been a lot of drop catches, and there have been in that sort of backward point, gully, fourth slip sort of region quite a bit. And there's a couple of reasons. I think one is the ball has been travelling very fast off the bat from that sort of area or in that area, and also the bounce of the ball has made it kind of come quite high, kind of head high rather than chest high. But I also think actually that the seeing is not obviously that good for the players, because they have been saying that I've never picked it up. So a little bit of a perhaps sympathy for the players having to try and keep an eye on those difficult sliced chances through the offside. I mean, with Pant, it's interesting, isn't it? But I've worked out that actually, I think when he plays those big shots, they're nearly always right at the start of an over. Some of if you look actually at his boundaries, his fours and even his sixes, quite a lot of them are off the first couple of balls of an over. In the case of Josh Tongue, he tried his first ball of the day, didn't he? Had a huge swipe across the line and it just missed leg stump. I think his philosophy is try and put the bowlers under pressure early on in an over, and then you can just toy with them afterwards. And it's worked pretty well. 200s in the match. I mean, amazing player, and it was lovely to watch the difference in their approaches. Rahul, sort of clinical, isn't he? Now, I listened to an interesting interview with him after an IPL game about 2 months ago, where he just said, when I practice very, very meticulously for a particular game, for a particular pitch, for particular bowlers. Sounds tautological to say that, but I really apply myself to a particular situation. When I practice in the nets, I imagine myself in a scenario in the match, and I just bat in the nets as if I'm batting in the middle, and try and take my time between balls and work on my shot selection and my placements. And he's almost like a scientist the way he bats, but luckily a very attractive scientist, someone who is glorious to watch, elegant, sublime, plays beautiful shots, especially through the offside. And I hope for him, as a Mr. Nice Guy and someone who is pleasing on the eye, that he has a fruitful Test career from now on, because he's too good not to have.
Yeah, he's a fine player. He's a wonderful technician. I have to say, Yoz, I did factor in the difficulty of taking catches on this ground into my assessment that he was going to make 100 today. So I thought, yeah, if he does nick one, he'll probably get dropped. So there we go. Anyway, it was a wonderful innings. He had to drag himself away. He was another one that played on in today. We saw Gill play on very early, but a brilliant stand, 195 in 47 overs. With Rishabh Pant, and England looked flat, didn't they? When in that afternoon session when India was scoring, it was 145 for one in 27 overs in that afternoon session. You thought, well, where they're going to get a wicket from, where the wicket's going to come from, and they came all in a sort of bundle after tea. Second new ball taken. It's interesting because I thought that at one point we were going to move into a situation where England would have to play for a draw. They would have no option but to play for a draw. India were going to score 430, something like that, and almost take the game away for England. I think, and that changed when Rishabh Pant was out because he was just threatening to. I mean, it could have been anything, couldn't it? If he stayed in for another hour, India would have been bounding over 400, and still with the lower order to come. But his dismissal, a bit of a loose shot, really. But then he rode his luck. Caught it long on off Shoaib Bashir by Zach Crawley. His dismissal kind of changed the course of the day's play, so that we are in this situation now where if we given a full day's play tomorrow, England, I mean, presumably unless they lost a lot of wickets early in the day and therefore had to really retrench and play for draw, England will presumably go for it. They'll and it's within their within the runs per over capability of this England side on this pitch, on this ground. So it's a beautiful balance really for the final day, isn't it? 350 runs, but it's still a lot of runs to get against a decent Indian attack with Jadeja coming into the game and also the Jasprit Bumrah factor as well. And you feel that some of the other bowlers they have to step up, they have to join Bumrah and they have to join Jadeja on the final day to give India a chance.
Now, we can talk in a little bit about how India went in the second half of their innings, but just to finish on Pant, I thought he would, like many people, I thought he'd go for his 100 with a 4 or a 6. He sort of crawled his way to about 94 with a few singles, and then I thought, he'd go for it with the big hit over the top. Stokes actually brought the man up long on into mid-on to tempt him to a big hit, but he refrained from doing that actually and just poked it around for a few singles, and then he got to 99, and I thought, oh God, it's not going to get another 99 in this game. And I said yesterday that I went down to the Western Terrace to celebrate Harry Brooks' impending 100, and of course he got out for 99. So obviously I jinxed him. I was tempted to go and jinx Rishabh Pant as well in England's interest, but in fact I didn't. And of course he got his 100. And by the way, I forgot to mention yesterday that after Harry Brook got out for 99, I actually went to the ice cream stall because it was quite hot actually yesterday afternoon in the Western Terrace, and I went and bought myself a 99 from the ice cream van. Have a guess how much a 99 was?
Are we talking London prices, Leeds prices? In London, it was probably about £27.50. Leeds, £3.50.
It was £6.
£6?
Yeah, I mean £6 for something which started off at 99p, presumably. Isn't that why it was called a 99? I presume that's why it was. So yeah, £6 for a 99. So I made sure it lasted. Yeah. So anyway, there's just one little sort of sideline on life on the terraces, if you like. Quite expensive, I think, especially if you're buying a few beers as well. So let's come to the second half of India's innings, and this is our daily Betfair exchange where we debate an issue which we may not agree on. I thought India were pretty ponderous in that last session. When they lost the wicket of Pant, it was 287 for 4, and they only finished up with 364 in the end. The last 77 runs took 25 overs. So I thought that was a bit ponderous, really. And, they could have been setting England 400 or more, but they lost a few wickets, and, Jadeja tried to farm the strike, not that effectively. The other Tucker added absolutely nothing at all, really, at number 8. He's supposed to come in and be the kind of aggressor lower or down the order, but he produced absolutely nothing. So I thought they lost their way a bit.
Yeah, I said earlier that the Pant dismissal was key to that, because he was going at it hard, and he was taking it on, and he was having some success after he got his 100. He got to 118, and I mentioned he was caught by Crawley at long on. I could sort of see what India were doing, because if you think about it, with this England side, you do want to make that chase as difficult as possible. So you don't want to just fall in the heat and be bowled out 340, 350 ahead. You want to try to extend it, try to get it up to 400, even 420. And the new ball undid them, and their lack of runs in the lower order undid them. And suddenly they were in this situation where they had to regroup, and there was kind of like a bizarre holding passage of play where Jadeja was blocking the first 4 balls of an over, then taking a single off the 4th ball of the over, and then Prasad Krishna was having to survive 2 balls, and that went on for about 4 overs, and it took about 15 minutes out of the game, and India were going nowhere. But I could sort of understand what they were doing. I agree, it did look ponderous, but I could understand the tactics, because they wanted to really extend their innings as much as possible. And they started, I mean, look, you wouldn't expect 3 wickets in an over, would you? I mean, that kind of really put the brakes on them, and so it was kind of tricky for them. And they were thinking, well, what do we do here? Do we stick? Do we twist? Have we got enough runs, or do we need some more? And I think with this England side, you want more. You probably don't want to set them 500, because they might not be interested in that. But you want it to be 400 if you possibly can. As it is, it's 371, and that will challenge England to go for it. But that sort of gives England the fact that India were bowled out gives England a chance, I think, in this game now. Not necessarily a vast chance, but it does give them a chance. It does bring the runs per over in. But what they wanted India from England is to make that runs per over equation much harder. So I could see what was going on, but you just felt they just completely lost their way and sort of a bit of a tactical mess, do you?
Yeah, I do really. Yeah, well, I don't think they had any kind of real plan, and there was no initiative. And in the end, the innings rather petered out, and they lost the sort of momentum they'd gained. So hopefully, for their sake, they aren't going to pay for it by the time they lost and the runs they could have made on the 5th day. Obviously, it's tough. First test of a series, Shubman Gill, first test as India captain. He's not necessarily entirely sure of his tactics. And I thought actually Ben Stokes didn't have a great day as captain in the field today. I thought that he missed a few tricks, and particularly he took the slips out. I was surprised by that after lunch. And there was a couple of edges that Pant got, which went through the slip, according if there'd been one, into sort of first or second slip. At one point, when Carson and Tongue were bowling from the Kirksall lane end, where there was definitely a little bit of extra bounce, he had a gully, a deepish gully, and then a ring field, and no slip. And I think that's fatal at Headingley. I think you always should have at least 1 or 2 slips. And 2 edges went through, begging to be caught with no one there. Then he put the men back afterwards, and of course, by then it was too late. The horse had bolted, and I don't know. I just thought generally England were a little bit more defensive than I've seen them sometimes in the past. Just slightly more defensive fields, and you need that risk to get the reward. And I thought that was quite un-Stokes like. He bowled pretty well, but at times I just thought England could have attacked a bit more. I know he's probably conscious that runs are leaking, and interestingly, this is the most number of runs that England have conceded at a high run rate for some time. They've conceded now, over 800 runs at 3.99 runs per over, so almost 4 runs an over, and that is a very high economy rate. Only twice ever have England conceded more runs at a higher run rate than that, and one of those was 1934 against Australia when Bradman was dominant, and they got about 1,000. But I think that's sort of indicative of the attack that Stokes is trying to manage at the moment, which obviously isn't quite as frugal and confident and accurate as the attacks he's had in the past when James Anderson and Stuart Broad have been part of it. So I suppose Stokes does have to balance defence with attack a little bit more than he used to. But I thought he got the balance a bit wrong today.
We've seen Ben Stokes defend before, actually, not that long ago, in that match in Rawalpindi in the final test of the Pakistan series, where he set the field back. He didn't have the field up. Uh, and Saad Shakil just chipped his way, knocked his way, turned his way, pushed his way to 100, and actually it was a match-winning 100. So it's not the first time we've seen that from Ben Stokes, but it was noticeable that he was back on the defensive. But Pan is such a difficult. I think he's such a difficult player uh, to bowl to, isn't he? He's such a difficult player to defend against or even attack against as well, because he plays in such an unorthodox way. He plays these extraordinary strokes. Sometimes he moves leg side, and you think he's going to play a big shot, and he thinks, no, it's not. This isn't ready for me to have a go out, and just blocks it. Kind of blocks a ball off the stumps when he's leg side of the ball. He does these really unorthodox things, and he plays those one-handed lofted drives as well, which he somehow manages to hit for six. I think he must be such a frustrating batter to bowl, because he's actually got a really good defence as well. And what I think's interesting about is he can stop himself. Sometimes you watch some of the England players. We talked about Jamie Smith yesterday, and perhaps Harry Brook as well. You feel when they're going, they almost can't stop themselves. The adrenaline is coursing through their veins. But Pan does seem to be able to do it. He seems quite kind of ruthless attacker of the ball, and then he'll go, right, no, I've got to change plan now. I'm just going to block for a bit. And he has got a good defence. It's not like he can't rely on his defence. It is a good defence. And he's played magnificently in this game. So he's only the second wicket-keeper ever to make 200 in a test match. And the other one was Andy Flam. One of those innings was 199 and not out. So, he's given India a chance there. Because if he was out early today, then India are under pressure. We've seen their lower order. So what do they lose? 7 for 41 in the first innings, 6 for 31 in the second innings. If England could have got down into that middle lower order earlier in the day, then the chase, well, it could have been 220 or 230 or something like that on the final day. As it is a pretty challenging 371. They've done it before against India. What was it? 378 to win at Edgbaston. They got those in 76.4 overs. There was another game at the Oval in 2021, where England needed 368 to win against India on part of the fourth day and into the final day. But it was a very different regime there, because Burns and Hamid put on 100 for the first wicket in 40.4 overs. I can't imagine. I mean, how many would Duckett and Crawley have if they batted for 40.4 overs? Probably over 200 the way those two play.
Yeah. Pant reminds me a bit, actually, of another Indian great player, Sourav Ganguly, in the way that he bats. In that he looks he's a bit crude, isn't he, at times? His footwork isn't particularly good, and he gets into some funny positions, but especially through the offside, he just gets his hands through the ball and lays it through the offside with abandon. And Ganguly was one who, again, you always thought he looked vulnerable. He didn't really move his front foot very much, and he threw his hands at the ball and hit through the line, especially through the offside, and sort of worked it through the leg side. But Ganguly got thousands and thousands of test runs, one of India's greatest players, and Pant is going to be the same. Difficult to bowl at, partly because of his range of shots, and partly because you just don't know what he's going to do. He's so unpredictable, and of course he's got India in a tremendous position. How were the England bowlers today overall? Wokes looked a bit ineffective, I have to say. He did bowl a reasonable spell with the second new ball. Carse, I thought, was excellent in the morning. Tried to overdid the sort of bouncer tactics, I thought, in the afternoon. There was a bit of bounce from the Kirkstall Lane end off a length, but England decided to go with the bouncer tactics, and it paid them, it cost them a lot of runs, really, that method. I thought they reverted to that too soon. Obviously, the man who loves his rabbit pie, Josh Tongue, did it again. So a good man to have to knock over the tail. That ball he bowled to Siraj, tucked him up and gloved him through to the keeper. First ball was excellent. I thought Shoaib Bashir was, again, innocuous. And funnily enough, I chatted to Phil Tufnell today about what he thought of him. And he said, I think they kept him on in the first innings. I think the batters sort of kept him on deliberately. They just milked him. And I said, well, funnily enough, that's exactly what I said. I just thought they didn't want to kind of attack him too much, because they were quite enjoying just scoring at 3 and 4 and over. So he does worry me a bit. He's so young. He's so inexperienced. He's obviously got talent, but he's very exposed against top players on these sort of flat pitches. And He got a kind of consolation wicket or two at the end, but he got panned, didn't he? Caught in the deep. But I feel England are vulnerable with him as the only spinner.
Yeah, I actually thought we discussed this in our Betfair exchange, didn't we, on the first day, that I thought he bowled quite well on the first day. He actually bowled with quite good control, and he did give Ben Stokes some control, which is what you want from a spinner in the first innings. In the second innings, you want them to be a threat. Okay, this is the third innings of the match rather than the fourth innings. You know, you'd love to bowl in the fourth innings with 400, 420 runs on the board. As it was, you know, he was bowling with two players in. Yeah, he didn't look much of a threat today, actually, and he didn't bowl particularly well. It was a bit short stuff and a bit full at times. Um, Look, how much is there in the surface for a spinner? There's a bit of grip, isn't there? And
Well,
yeah,
we'll see. We'll see
we'll see
when
tomorrow,
Jadeja
won't
comes
we? Yeah,
tomorrow.
we'll see.
Yeah. Mm.
He had an over tonight, didn't he, Ravi Jadeja? You know, he could be a bit of a handful, but it's not ripping, is it? It's not
No.
ripping and bouncing. There is something for the spinner to work with. I didn't think particularly Shoaib Bashir made the most of that today. 2 for 90 from 22 overs. He was bowling at two very good players in KL Rahul, wonderful technicians we've described, and also Rishabh Pant, you know, who's so unorthodox, you know, top class player in good form, you know, having a great match. So yeah, not his best day, and it is a bit of a concern, I think, for England as you know as they go forward, as they move towards the Ashes. But you know, Ben Stokes likes him. He wants a
Mm.
spinner in his team. They think that he'll bowl well in Australia because of his height. I would
Mm.
say TBD on all those things, really, to be
Mm.
decided.
Yeah, and there's much debate about England's ideal seam attack as well. Will Wokes survive the series? We'll see. I'm not sure. And also, can someone like Jofra Archer come into the side? Obviously, he made his comeback today. Well, the second day of his comeback for Sussex against Durham. I noticed he bowled about 15 overs, took one wicket for 26. So decent return, but nothing to write home about. But I reckon England will certainly be looking at him for the second test if he can come through this game and maybe take a few wickets. What do you think?
Well, for the second test, do you think? I wonder whether that's going to be a bit early, the second test. I think you want a few more overs, really, under your belt before you go for the second test match. That to me would feel like a bit of a gamble.
I suppose I'm thinking more in the squad than perhaps than actually to play, but bringing him back into the squad. I mean, he can't unless he can play another championship game, I suppose, next weekend, which is that there's another round of matches, so maybe another game then, and then perhaps think about him for Lords in that case. But I think England do need. You feel like they do need a bit more of a cutting edge. Whether Wokes can rediscover his threat, I'm not sure. He was bowling at 77, 78 miles an hour today, and obviously fantastic cricketer, but maybe he's perhaps just slightly past his best now, and England need reinforcements. I think we're going to find that because these Indian batsmen are not going to go easily or lightly, are they?
No, I mean one thing is about the next two venues for Test matches. One is Edgbaston, which is Chris Wakes' home ground, so there's that factor, and also the other one after that is Lords. Well, that is where he performs at his best. He's a magician
Mm.
at Lords, so I don't know what you do about that. Also, he hasn't played that much cricket, so
Mm.
in the same way that batters just need a bit of time. He's probably one of those bowlers that needs a bit of time as
Yeah.
well. So I wouldn't write anybody off at this stage. It's the first Test match of the summer. Players can get into their work as the series progresses. But yeah, speeds in the late 70s in this
Mm.
Test match. Where you probably in a Test match you probably want to be minimum low 80s, don't you? Really, as a pace bowler, I would say.
Mm.
So here's a question for you, Oz. Two questions actually. When was the last time England played for a draw in a Test match? And before you get to that, I know the answer to this, but before you get to that, do you think there will be a time tomorrow when England might have to play for a draw?
I'm trying to think. The last time they played for a draw, I suppose, was it Lords against New Zealand when they were set a target and they didn't go for it?
Uh, Incorrect. but that's not a bad answer. That was the last but one time. There was one time since then, and it was Sydney 2002 in 2022 in the COVID Ashes, where Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad played out the closing overs of the match in Sydney. And England batted out 102 overs. They were 9 wickets down, and that was the only match they didn't lose in that series.
I'd totally lost interest in the Ashes by then, so sorry, I didn't clock that one.
Yeah, the point is they haven't had to do it, and they certainly haven't done it recently. I mean, they haven't been in a position to do it really since that game in Sydney. And there was that match at Lords, which drew a lot of criticism. Remember, I mean, Dom Sibley made 60 off 207 balls. Everyone said England should have gone for it. They needed about 270. They were 170 to 3 in that game against New Zealand. And then the next time they played New Zealand at Lords, they did go for it. And then after that, they kept on going for it. And there was that complete sea change. So we haven't seen it under Ben Stokes. They haven't been in a position to play out for a draw. I was actually kind of like fascinated to see what would happen today if India had got 430, whether England would have actually said, look, we really can't win this. Even though we're positive, we can't win this. And would they have to play out for a draw? As it is, they probably won't have to, unless, of course, we get some rain interruptions tomorrow, and and then the target becomes a bit too difficult for them. So there's that aspect of tomorrow's play. That's why the draw, and I think the weather, that's why the draw is a little bit is second favourite and England a third favourite. But you'd say probably in a full day, it's going to go, you'd think it'd probably go one way or the other, wouldn't you? India more likely to win, but England in with a chance, and the draw kind of like a distant third. But yeah, a lot of it depends on the weather tomorrow.
Okay, so give us the likelihood of win again, and I'm going to give you a few Betfair odds on highest scorers.
Okay, so India are 45% to win the match. The draw is 29%, and England are 27%.
Okay, I'm going to have a little go on England there, and well, weather permitting, obviously. And I like Joe Root, a 7-2 highest run scorer, but I also like Ben Duckett, 7-2 highest England run scorer in the second innings as well. I just think he's looking so good at the moment, so confident and so adaptable. And India not quite sure how to bowl at him. And do you know what he did today? He left 2 balls in a row, something he hasn't done for about 6 months.
And he left 3 balls in all. Yeah, so they were out there for 6 overs, and he left 3 balls in that time.
So he's adding new ingredients to his game, Ben Duckett. 7-2 to be England's highest run scorer tomorrow. Well, it's exciting. It's beautifully set up. Let's hope the weather holds out. We'll be back at this time tomorrow. Tell you what happened in the final day's play. Thank you very much to Betfair for supporting this podcast. And don't forget, you must be 18 or over to bet. And please gamble responsibly.
Come on, the Leeds weather. Do your best. This game absolutely deserves a full day's play, whichever way this game is going to go. It's been a brilliant game, and it deserves an absolutely fantastic climax. Goodbye for now. Speak to you tomorrow.
Fine.